Hello, Mastery Algebra 1. Welcome, I'm Mr. White. This is the first section in Chapter 12, Lesson 12-2, Frequencies and Histogram. There are many ways to organize and visually display data. Sometimes it's helpful to organize the numerical data into intervals. So the frequency of an interval is the number of data values in that interval. A frequency table groups a set of data values into intervals and shows the frequency for each interval. Intervals in frequency tables do not overlap, they do not have any gaps, and are usually of equal size. And then what we do from this table is we can take this table and then organize it into a histogram, which is a quantitative bar graph showing frequencies or these counts. So we're going to start with how do we make a frequency table. This also shows how a data set is partitioned among several different categories or classes. So one of the first things that we need to know is we need to know some definitions. We need to know what's called the class width. Lower limits are, we need to know what upper limits are, and the last one is classes. So in problem 1, the numbers of home runs by the batters in a local home run derby are listed below. What is the frequency table that represents the data? So if you notice, we have a title here, home run results, and then we're looking at home runs and frequency. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 different classes that we can actually look at. So this has 4 classes which are broken up into different sections or partitions. Okay. This is also going to correspond to the number of bars that we would use when we look at a histogram. So the first thing what we're going to do is we need to take our data, our home runs, and we need to look, and we're going to find the class width. In order to get the class width, we need to take our maximum value minus our minimum value and then divide by the number of classes that we're interested in looking at. In this case, our maximum value is, if we glance across the home runs, is 17, and our minimum value is 2. So we're going to go 17 minus 2, and then for this particular frequency table, we want 4 classes, or there's 4 classes given to us. So if we go 17 minus 2 divided by 4, 15 divided by 4 gives us 3.75. What we're going to always do, especially if we get a decimal, is we always round up no matter what the decimal is. We want a whole number. So if we round up from 3.75, this is going to give us a class width of 4. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take and use our class width, and in this first part where the home runs, we're going to take and start with our lowest number, 2. And we're going to place a 2 on the left-hand side. And then when we look at our classes, the class width, we're going to go from 2 and we're going to add the class width. So 2 plus 4 gives us 6. And then that's going to give us our next starting point. Or in this case, those first values, these are our lower limits. So 2, 6, if we add 4 again, we're going to get 10. If we add 4 again, we get 14. To get our upper limits, which are now the right side of our value, we're going to go 1 less than the lower limit before. So if we went 2 to 6, 1 less than that 6 is 5. So this first class are home runs from 2 to 5. If we go to the next one, we went from 6 to 10, 1 less than 10 is 9. One key that we can do is if we find the upper limits, we can use our class width to find the next upper limit by doing what we did with the lower limits. So once we found 5 as the upper limit for the first class, we can add 4. 5 plus 4 gives us 9. 9 plus 4 gives us this next value, which will be 13. And then 13 plus 4 gives us 17. So we have 4 classes, one of them 2 to 5 home runs, 6 to 9 home runs, 10 to 13 home runs, and 14 to 17 home runs. Now to get the frequency, all we're going to do is count up how many values we have from that class. So if we look, how many home runs are 2 to 5? So if we go down, we know that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 values that are 2 to 5. So we can write a 4 value. If we count up how many are 6 to 9, we should get 4. If we look at 10 to 13, we get 3, and then from 14 to 17, we get 3. This is a frequency table. Be sure to also include, remember, a title, and then we want to label the bars that we created. For instance, on the left-hand side, we have home runs, and then we have frequency on the right. Once we have created this frequency table, now we can display this in what's called a histogram, which is a graph that is quantitative data or counting data from a frequency table. A histogram has 1 bar for each interval. So in this case, for the home runs, we have 4 intervals or 4 classes. So we should see 4 bars. Okay, the height of each bar is shown by the frequency. Okay, there's no gaps between the bars, so they touch, and the bars are usually of equal width. So problem 2, making a histogram. We're going to look at television. The data below are the numbers of hours per week of groups of students spent watching television. What is the histogram that represents the data? First thing that's given to us is we have the frequency table on the left. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 classes again, or intervals. So we should see 4 bars when we create this histogram. First thing we want to do is we want to figure out, well, what is the class width? So our class width, just from above, should be our max minus our min. If we look, we see that 22 is our max and 0 is our min. So we have 22 minus 0, and then we're going to divide by the number of classes that we want, which is 4. 22 divided by 4 gives us 5.5. Round up always to 6. So the width between each of our classes is 6. So if we start, we're going to put our lowest value in the top left, which is 0, right? And then we add 6, so 0 plus 6, and we go down, so we get 6. If we add 6 again, we get 12. If we add 6 again, we get 18. To get the upper limits, start with the second interval, 6. Go 1 less than 6, which is 5. So our first interval is from 0 to 5. Now, if we add 6 to 5, we should get 11. If we add 6 again, we get 17. And if we add 6 again, we get 23. So those are our intervals. Now we need to count. How many are from 0 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 17, and 18 to 23? Hit pause quickly. Go ahead, fill in the frequencies. Check back in a few seconds. Go. All right, welcome back. Frequencies from 0 to 5 hours of watching television. You should add 6, then 5, then 3, and then 1. Now, we're going to take this frequency table, create a histogram. So we have an x-axis, a y-axis. We're going to label. So we have our frequency, which is just counts, usually going up to probably at least a little bit past, or if not the highest frequency, which is 6. So I went by 2s. And then we need to label the x-axis, which is our hours that we're interested in watching television. So we say hours. We fill in the intervals from 0 to 5. 6 to 11, 12 to 17, and 18 to 23. And then we draw our bars up to the height that it represents. So for instance, from 0 to 5, there were 6. And then we can put a 6 on top of the bar, or you could put it inside the bar. Okay. From 6 to 11, we went up to 5. From 12 to 17, it was 3. And from 18 to 23, there was 1. And that is a histogram that represents watching television. If we look at our histogram, there are a couple things that we need to take note. Okay? This forms a particular shape. Some shapes or some information that we want to look at is 1, our graphs or our histograms could look uniform, which is bars that are roughly equal in height, straight across. We can have symmetric, which are bars that start low, gradually increase to the middle, and then decrease low again. And then another one, which is what we see, is skewed, where our bars will start high and then gradually decrease low, or they will start low and gradually increase up. The one that we have is called skewed right. One last note, to always make sure when constructing a histogram, always create the frequency table first, then transfer the frequency table into a histogram. Alright, a cumulative frequency table. This tells us the number of data values that are less than or equal to some upper limit. So it's going to show us data values that lie in or below a given interval. For example, if the cumulative frequency for the interval 70 to 79 is 20, then there are 20 values less than or equal to 79. So in problem 4, we're going to create this cumulative frequency table using text messaging. So these are the numbers of text messages sent on one day by different students shown below. What is the cumulative frequency table that represents the data? We're going to start off by doing the same thing that we did on the previous page. We need to create the frequency table, find the class width, fill in the information for the frequencies that represent each classes, and then we'll move on to the cumulative part. So the class width, we need our max minus our min. Maximum value is 49. Our minimum value is 0. So we have 49 minus 0 divided by the number of classes, and we can see that we have 5 this time. So 49 divided by 5 is 9.8. We're going to round up to approximately 10. So our class width between classes is 10. If we put our first number down, we get 0. Add 10 down, we get 10. Then we get 20, 30, and 40. To get our upper limit of the first class, we can go one less than the 10, so we get 9. Now if we just add 10 to 9 and go down, we should have 19, 29, 39, and 49 for our classes. Go ahead, hit pause. Fill in the frequencies that represent each of those classes. Check back in a few minutes. Go. Alright, welcome back. So for the number of text messages 0 to 9, you should have had 11. 10 to 19 was 3. 20 to 29 was 3. 30 to 39 was 2, and 40 to 49 was 2. So now the cumulative frequency. So the cumulative frequency says if we go to the upper limits, so for 0 to 9, we want to know how many values are at or below 9. And in this case, we found out that it was 11. So we know our cumulative frequency for that class is 11. Now, if we go to the next class, okay, we are interested in how many values are at 19 or below. Well, we already know that we have 11 in the first class. Now we've put in 3 more. So if we add 11 plus 3, we're going to get 14. So now there are 14 values that are at 19 or below. If we go to the next class, we're looking at 29. So how many values are at 29 or below? Well, we have 14 just from the last two. If we add an extra 3, now we get 17. So there are 17 values. Well, 39, if we add 17 plus the next 2, we get 19. And then if we take the last class at 49, we add 2 more to 19, we're at 21. Once you reach the last class, this 21 should represent the 21 values that were given us at the beginning. So we know 100% of the data is below 49 or at 49. All right, one thing you need to do real quick is go through. We left off the classes. So for number 7, you need 3 classes. For 9, you need to make 4 classes. For 10, 6 classes. And for 12, you need 7 classes. And for the last one, we need 5 classes. So let's double check and see how you're doing. Go ahead and hit pause. Do number 7. Okay, check back in a few minutes. Go. Alright, welcome back. If you notice, you should have had a class width of 9. Then we were looking at wingspan, number of centimeters, the frequency. So 125 to 133 had 5. 134 to 142 had 3. And 143 to 151 had 5. One more. If you look at the next page, number 10, we're going to look at cost of items. You need to use this data to make a histogram. Remember to first create the frequency table, then create the histogram. Go ahead, hit pause. See you in a few minutes. Go. All right, welcome back. If you take a look at the picture, we had the cost on the left of items, creating a frequency table. Did 30 minus 1 divided by 6, gave us 4.8, rounded up for a class width of 5. So between the classes is a width of 5. So we have 1 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, 21 to 25, 26 to 30. Gave us the frequencies. Transferred the frequencies over to the histogram. If you have any questions, please see your teacher as soon as possible. Otherwise, please complete the rest of the practice 9 12 and 18. And remember, always do your best, forget the rest. Bye for now.